John Milton Overman moved to the Sturgis Falls area in 1847 with his brother Dempsey. The two of them bought land and a watermill owned by William Sturgis, and the two were responsible for changing the settlement's name from Sturgis Falls to Cedar Falls. John Overman became the first mayor of Cedar Falls in 1851. John Overman is showing his face again around the downtown area.
We really like that it's a historical figure, but this is the newest asset to downtown, this building is. So it sort of is a nice juxtaposition of old and new, celebrating where we came from and where we're going. When we really looked at sort of the values and the principles of River Place, being urban, being geared up towards the millennial population, being bright and funky and artsy, Brett really came to mind. I knew his art just by way of knowing him in the community, and his sort of natural art style really resonated with the values of River Place.
Audrey approached me, and Audrey and Kim reached out to me like, hey, we want to get some local art, do a mural down here in our new building. And I was like, okay, that's great. So what am I going to do? And so I came down here and took a walk one afternoon and just walked around looking for inspiration and stuff like that, and came up completely blank. Didn't have any idea what I was going to do, and started thinking about it that night, and I was like, oh, I already did the painting. I had made that painting for a gallery down here, and so took a picture of the painting, brought it into Audrey with a picture of Mr. Overman, and presented it. Had a minor panic attack. They loved it, and so it went great, and that's how it started. And that was probably the summer of last year, beginning of the summer last year.
This project took Brett around 100 hours to complete, and this is the biggest project to scale Brett has ever worked on.
No, I've never worked on this scale, ever. The largest painting I had ever done was probably 3 by 9 feet total, and so I knew it could be done. I just didn't know how I was going to do it, but it's, you know, it's not like putting a man on the moon. I just figured with enough time and effort, I could figure it out. And then I had to figure out how I was going to make the stencils. So I was out at Signs and Designs talking to those guys because I get materials from them all the time, and they said, if you can computerize that, we'll just cut it out for you. And so they cut it out of giant sheets of styrene, and so 3 sheets per layer had to line up just perfect, spray them out, let them dry, probably 2 layers a night for that. The circles took a lot longer, just in dry time and moving and positioning and stuff like that. It was sketchy when I was lining up the stencils, because when I'm working on a smaller scale painting, if I'm a little bit off, I'll just paint over it, start again, or take the whole canvas apart, throw it away, start all over again. And so the first night I came down here to start this, that was quite the task, because if I screw that up, to start over, I'd probably have to paint over it again, depending on how bad I screwed it up, because if you're off just like 1/4 of an inch in one quarter, by the time you get to the other end, you're going to be off like 3 inches or something like that. So painstaking. My wife helped me a tremendous amount. I was about to spray out a layer. She's like, that's not lined up right. And so it's like, let's reset it. So to line up the layers, probably I'd spend like 45 minutes to an hour to make sure they were just dead on accurate with the, just so they all lined up just perfect to make it like that. So
the color scheme of the painting goes along with the color scheme of the hallways and apartments in the building, and the circles on the painting adds a nice flow through the lobby.
Majority of my paintings, that's kind of my format, my composition, I guess you say. On a smaller scale with canvas pieces, I do splatters. When Audrey and Kim, we talked about it, you know, Audrey was wanting to do some splatters, just kind of my general, what my pieces generally look like. But splatters on this scale, you know, if I took a paintbrush and threw it at the wall, it's not going to splatter like that. I mean, it'll splatter, but you're talking about very minute splatter. So I came up with the idea, let's just do some circles, because some of my paintings that I do, I'll just do drips from a high distance and they end up turning into circles. And so I decided to go ahead, do the circles. I cut out probably 78 stencils of circles of varying sizes, which was way more than I ended up needing. The stencils lasted a lot longer than I anticipated them needing to be. But that way I could hang out multiple circles at once, go spray them out, let it dry for a little bit. I used a Montana Gold for this piece because it's very color fast. It's got a great dry time. It also is very low odor too, so that was really good. And so I just spray out 8 to 10 circles, let them dry for 5 minutes or something like that, move them on down the line, spray out more, and just keep moving out throughout the building. And in the entryway, I wanted it to flow through the, what do you call that, a vestibule area? I wanted it to flow out through there, and so I actually had to tape off all the boxes, the fire box, the call box. Accidentally called one of the tenants when I was taping off the call box. Yeah, it's just to make it a really smooth flow to it.
In the future, you may see more of these murals going up around the Cedar Valley, because it is a nice way to put a face to the name.
I really like taking these old photos that just sit around in, in library books, in people's basements or lock boxes and stuff like that, and getting them out because no one sees these people. We've all heard of Overman. We know Overman Park. But not a lot of people, knowing if you put up that picture, no one's going to be like, oh, that's John Overman. There's going to be a few people that recognize that, but not a lot. And so I really like getting those images out to share with the public, to tell a story about who that person was, and then juxtapose them with something modern, which is why I did the hand gesture.
Brett's concept that he could take a historical figure that's important to Cedar Falls, but to give it a modern twist by that hand gesture that basically signifies rock on Cedar Falls, keep doing progressive things, keep making Cedar Falls a place where people want to live and they're proud to call home.